rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zimet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zimet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Sofia Sapp, and she's calling in from the beautiful state of Georgia, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, my dear.
And thank you. And I am really excited about being here today.
Awesome. What excites you the most about being on the show today?
Well, what excites me the most is the fact that I am a newbie to social media, and I really don't have a lot of experience. So this will be something that will help me grow and be a better person.
Well, that's what it's all about. So if we can help you get better in that social media avenue, well then, here we are, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what else does Sheila do down there in Georgia? You had mentioned earlier that you were an educator at one time?
Yes, I recently retired as an elementary principal from a K-5 elementary school. I was there, believe it or not, 3 different times. And the last time I was there for 16 consecutive years. So I retired in June of 2017. And after I retired, I started I had 2 businesses. One with a co-partner, a former colleague. We had an educational consulting business. And I also had my own personal educational consulting business called Sheila E. Cares. And when you work as a school administrator, you're 200% involved with the school. So I never really had the opportunity to do a lot with it.
Right.
So now that I'm here, COVID arrived.
Yeah, to everybody's surprise, right?
Yes, ma'am. So I am using, and I have used this time to do more consulting. And of course, I am doing things via Zoom, and that's what I'm trying to get out there to parents. I'm a big believer in the fact that parents are their first child's teacher. And I think that many parents forget that. Once their children start school, they forget about that everything that their child has learned, they taught them. So that's one of the things that I push. I've also started a YouTube channel.
Oh, well, she's going for it all. That's good.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is working at becoming more comfortable videoing myself and being able to respond when I'm asked questions instead of having a script before me all the time, just being able to respond, as you say, organically.
Well, that's why you're going to love this show, because everything here is organic. Yeah. Nothing's prepared, nothing. It's just all right here in your face, so to speak, right?
And the other thing that I'm doing is in addition to consulting, I like motivating people and encouraging people. So I have also presented at some graduations and been their speaker. So that's something.
Well, there you go. That's great. That's good to have under your belt. So now the next step is to write a book.
Well, believe it or not, I have written 3 books.
Okay.
And the book that I am pushing now is called The Learning House.
We'll see it. You got a picture of it?
I happen to have my book here.
She just happens to have it there. Oh my goodness.
And what I did, Mrs. Zimet, was at the urgings of my daughter, I put together all these different activities that I developed. And it's called the Learning House because what I do is show parents how they can use every area of the house as a learning station. And not only that, I taught,
Okay.
those ordinary chores that we do, like cooking and dusting and uh,
Those are skills
wash.
that aren't really taught. I mean, we were taught. I tell you, when I was growing up, man, the whole thing was if you were in the house, mom had you doing something. I mean, she literally had you doing something, right? Whether it needed to be done or not, right? So, and we lived on a farm, right? So we learned real early the further you got away, you might be in hearing distance, but if you weren't in seeing distance, you were safe.
Well, I grew up, I'm the oldest of six. And so we had chores. And so what I
Oh,
do is take ordinary chores and I show them how they can use them and make them be learning tools.
yeah.
So
That is so awesome. I grew up second oldest of 11, so I know what that's all about. You know, the thing is, it's quite interesting. When you look at the world today, because we get so busy being busy, right?
mhm,
And it takes more than one parent to be out there to run that household. So now both parents are working, kids are in a daycare or whatever, right? And so those skills kind of go by the wayside, so to speak, right? And so to be able to bring that back, that's powerful. And then to have a book, she wrote the book on it, guys. You hear that? She wrote the book on it. How cool is that, right? And so to be able to put that in a perspective, and it starts right at a really early age. If
yes, it does.
I mean, think about it. How many times your little 3-year-old push a chair over, want to get up there, get their hands in the water, do some dishes or splash around, make a mess, whatever, right? Or they want to get up there and I want to stir the cookies, whatever.
Taste the batter.
That too, right? So at that curiosity age is the time to really get that learning curve going, right? And of course, it's like we don't want that. It's like, oh, now I got a mess. It's like, well, you know what? Enjoy that. Because there's going to be a day when you look back to say, wow, I should have just spent more time with them. I should have let them make a mess. What the heck's the difference, right? Because then you teach them how to clean the mess up, right? you
That's
know,
so good. So
yeah. So I really like where you're going with this because I have another business that I work in virtual reality, and we're also working in the educational field with that, working with special need kids, but also working with kids to do exactly what you're doing is to help parents take that time and make it quality time and learning time to really say, hey, we have skills that are necessary to survive in the world. And unfortunately, sometimes there's parents out there that never learn those skills. My belief is there's been 3 decades where we've really lost the skill set of the basics, right? And
right.
and this COVID, I look as being a time in this period to get back to the basics. So sometimes it's not just teaching the children, it's also helping the parents learn different skills of communication completely on every single level. And
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how old you are, there's always something new to learn. Even if you think you know it, there's always what? A better way to do it.
yes, that's so.
Right?
When you mentioned about parents, many parents, as a result of the COVID-19, are now, if they weren't homeschooling, are now homeschooling or they're virtual schooling.
Right.
And so that's the other part that when I talk about encouragement is trying to encourage them, to take a deep breath. You can do it. And this is a time, as you mentioned about communication. This I can't think of a better time, Mrs. Imet, in using this time to build stronger communication and connection with their children. And one of the sad things I know in our county, we had some young children commit suicides. And so the other thing that I really feel is not only can parents build a foundation for the love of learning in their children, but I think that there's some, I call them power tools. Things like self-confidence, building
Right.
self-esteem, self-competence, and also resiliency and perseverance. If we as parents can lay the foundations for those skills, then we can help children as they go through the ups and downs of, if they're in school, or learn how to deal with disappointments and learn the skill of problem solving and
Right.
coping. And, many of those skills we learned as growing up. But what I found in my experience, all those years working at the elementary level, that as you said, many parents are young and they haven't learned it. And they really don't, they think that the way to communicate with your child and to build that connection is to give their child everything that they want.
Right.
They don't want to sit in assemblies and have their child not get an award. Everybody needs to get an award, but that isn't the way life is.
Right.
So children need to learn early that, there are some things that you're going to fail at, and there's nothing wrong with making a mistake. And when you have these opportunities, or when I call them opportunities, because you can always learn from mistakes. And I think that we need to instill those things in our children so
Right.
that when they become adults or they're teenagers, and that boy or girl who they think is the person for them at the time, and when things don't work out, they don't automatically think about doing something to harm themselves.
Right.
I want to see children to be able to pick themselves up and say, okay, they kicked me to the curb. That's one of the things that they say.
Right.
Well, there are other things in life. There are other people. There are other chances. So and I didn't mention, the book, The Learning House, is one that I had written some years ago. But the most recent book that I wrote is now with the publisher, and I'm waiting to see when it will actually be published. But I devote a chapter, as a matter of fact, 2 chapters on what I call the power tools. And I talk about self-esteem more and building, self-confidence and teaching your children how to be resilient and persevering and problem solving. And I feel that regardless of what children decide when they become adults, what they want to be, it doesn't matter if you're Einstein, but if you can't problem solve, or if you don't feel good about who you are, and if you're not aware
Right.
of your competencies, or if you can't persevere, and if you're not resilient, it doesn't matter how smart you are. And
Oh, that's so true. I mean, we talk about book smart, we talk about street smart, right? But it's that knowing. But one of the things, too, and everything that you're talking about here, what is key and what is relevant is being able to know that you did your best. It's not about whether you made it to number one, if you were the winner. We put so much on winning and losing, winning and losing, winning and losing, right? We live in a world of duality, right? And, there's only room for one at the top. No! There's room for everybody at the top because everybody's top is different.
right,
And when we can instill into these children that if you have done your best, that's all that matters. But if you were lazy and sloughing off, then were you really fulfilling your best you? Not so much. So
right,
how do we get those skills and what you're teaching here, what you're saying, is to help these kids understand and learn that everyone has a different capacity for certain things. Someone may have a speed running. I don't know what they got under those legs, but man, they are like powerhouses, right?
yes,
And
yes,
someone else, it's like, oh man, I run down the end of the block, I'm done, right? Does that mean that they're a failure at running? No, it means that their capacity to run that mile in 3 minutes is not their gig, and it's okay.
Right, right. And it's
Right?
funny you mentioned that. Well, not funny, but while you were saying that, that's one of the things that I have been struggling with and working on mastering. You know, you look at social media, you look at YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
Facebook, and you see all these different people, and some people have the gift of gab, and they're very motivating, yes, like you. And but the thing is, I have to do what is Sheila. I have to feel comfortable with what I can do, and I have to share what I know and what I feel good about. So that's what I've been working on. And I tend to, and I found this out about myself, Beverly, although I didn't want to admit it, that
Sometimes that gets to be the tough one. Yeah.
I realized that well, I'm a perfectionist.
Okay.
And I never really faced that fact. And my daughter told me that all the time. But hey, I say, okay, what do you know? But I found out that just in videoing myself, that I want everything to be perfect. And the thing is, I am human. And that's what children need to know. They are human. They each have gifts that God has given them. And God has given everybody a different gift. So
Right.
part of what with this COVID-19 is that's bringing more and more to light for me is, hey, Sheila, you can't be a Beverly Zymet or whoever.
Oh, that's good though. One of me is enough for the world, okay?
And I'm saying that I have to find who I am. I have to believe
Right.
in who I am. I have to feel, as you said, feel good about who I am and what I have been created to be and to do.
Right.
And so that's another step about, you talked about being, a better
Right.
you, being reaching your full potential. That's part of it.
And that's identity. For me, what started me on my journey back in 1974 was I had no identity. I had completely lost my identity, right? And it's like, whoa, who am I? Why am I? What am I? And this is coming from someone who knew it all, right? And was just this little rebel. And then all of a sudden, I had 4 years there that took me into an abyss of
Mhm.
not knowing who I was. And it was critical for me. It put me on the edge of suicide, right? And coming out of that realization. And again, sometimes when we look at things in ourselves, it's like, wow, talk about wake up calls, right? But it is about identity, and if we can help those children build these skill sets, it helps them find out who they are. I had a guest the other day say something to me on the show. She said, if you don't find out, who you are, then someone else will tell you who you
That's
aren't.
correct.
Who you
That,
aren't. Right? It's
mm,
like, whoa. And it was just so true because we get this like, oh, you have to be this, so you have to be really good at running, you have to be really good at grades, you have to be really good, you have to wait a minute, who am I? Right? There's these skill sets that are necessary. We put our kids in sports because we want them to be right, the
right.
quarterback of all times, right, the baseball player of all times. We all want a Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth. Anybody remembers those names? But
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, we forget, who is this child? Let's help that child develop that child. You know, if you're busy being what you think other people want you to be or who you want to be, I like to share this little analogy, is when you go to work says this is what you need to do, so you become this person at work with all your fellow employees and whatever, regardless of what level you're in charge of,
Yeah.
right? This is the way you respond. This is you at work. Okay, now you go home and you have your home life, and this is you at home life. Now you go around your family or friends or whatever, and now you're this you, right? Now you decide you're going to leave the world and you're going on vacation, right? And you're going where nobody knows you. Now you're that person. That's probably more true to who you are than in any of these other aspects, right? So you have all these different yous that are playing in these different roles. And one day you go out and you open your mailbox, and here's this little letter in there, right? Here's this little envelope, and you open it up, right? And you take it out, and there's this message that says, you are invited to this special event. This is a party just for you. Oh, wow, how nice, right? You go, you knock on the door, and somebody opens it, you walk in, and all of a sudden, you see people from work, people from vacation, family, friends, all these different avenues. Who are you? Which you are you going to be in that party? You can't be them all.
Right.
Which you are you going to be? Oh my goodness, all of a sudden you decide, I don't think I feel so good, and I don't want to contaminate everybody, so I'm going to leave. Thanks for the offer for the party, right? And you just beat the heck out of there, right? Because you don't know who you're going to be because you're so many different hats, right? You're so many different yous.
Right.
But if you just become you, the real you, it doesn't matter where you are. So it doesn't matter what other people think of you. It matters what you think of you.
Think of yourself. Right.
So it's time for you to take a look at the identity of who you are. And that's what put me on my journey into becoming an identity revelation specialist, where I teach you how to become your own self-discovery archaeologist. And what does that mean? It means moving away from the things that you are not to find who you really are, right? And if we can start teaching these skills like what you're doing here, Sheila, wow, what better place to start, because you're giving them an opportunity to say, okay, let's find these skill sets, right? What are you good at? What are your assets? And every one of us as an adult can learn. What's your assets? Great. How do we capitalize on them? How do we use those to become, as you put it, resourceful, resilient? Where do you go for that next step? How do you build that confidence? Right?
Right.
This duality world, and it's like we focus so much on the things that we are not, the failure things, the ungood things, because we're being hammered into, you got to do the best, you got to do the best, you got to be the winner, you got to be the winner, you got to be the winner, And kids do not want to do what? Let their parents down. It's not about that. It's about helping that child become that best that they are. Because you know what? When they reach that level, that's their number one spot. And it's perfect, what? For them.
For them.
For them.
Right. And Beverly, do you think sometimes, as parents, we try to put onto our children what our hopes and our dreams are? Just because we birthed them doesn't mean that they need to be exactly like us. We need to, build the foundation, nurture them, love them unconditionally, but let them be.
Let them be them, right?
Who they are.
You really tapped on something there, because that is so true. We live vicariously through our children, right? So we want our kids to have what we didn't have, right? Oh man, I learned this one hard and heavy. My kids were, I think they were, because they were just barely a year apart, right? So I think they were right in the age bracket of 6, 7, 8, bicycle riding time, right? Now, growing up on a farm, we had one bicycle that Dad would pick up from a farm sale or something, right? So we all had to take turns, and you learned how to mechanically fix that thing to make it work, when it didn't, and we had to take turns with it. So my dream was always to have a brand new bike. Oh, God, it would be so nice just to get a bike for Christmas, right? That never happened. So I decided one Christmas, because the kids had their, old bikes and whatever, and it's like, I'm going to get each one of my kids a brand new bike because I knew what it meant to me if I would have seen that bike underneath the Christmas tree with my name on it. Whoa, right?
Right.
I was so excited for Christmas Day to get here, to see the looks on their face when they came down and saw their brand new bikes, right? They could have cared less if they had a new bike. Right? It wasn't one slap, it was three. Bam, bam, bam. It's like, whoa, what is the lesson here? So we can learn by not living vicarious. Our lessons growing up and our lessons as we continue through life are ours. Right. Personalize them, learn, and keep on moving forward, right? Don't let your lessons define you. Define your skills that you learn from that and move forward. That's the lesson that we can project onto the children of the world, right? Is to let's develop these skill sets. Be you. What do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Oh my God, I asked this to a 7-year-old here a few months ago. He was on my show. He's actually written some books, right? And he wanted to share some of the jokes. I was interviewing his dad. And I said, yeah, sure. Right? The little squirt wouldn't shut up. He just kept on going and going. He was having a good time. And his dad was like, he never talks that much. He's pretty, reserved, when it comes. And he's been on different interviews. He'll tell 2 or 3 jokes, and here's my book, right? And off he is. He was on for 15, 20 minutes. He just kept on, no, 5 more, right? Because I engaged with him, right? And that's what's really critical. But when I asked him, I said, you're 7 years old. What do you want to be? He goes, I want to be a coder and an engineer. Okay. I want to be a coder and engineer. You're 7 years old. You're supposed to say you want to be a fireman or you want to be an Indian or cowboy or something, It's like, you talk about years difference, right? I was like blown away. Now, I know these kids are born with technology in their blood. I mean, it's just who they are, right? So it was really quite interesting, having that kind of conversation, and it's like...
Beverly. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you, you just reminded me of a pet peeve of mine with technology, is I would have parents come into the school to have lunch with their children, and they would sit down and immediately pull out a cell phone. And the whole time while they were, quote, having lunch with their child, they were on the cell phone, no communication. And the other thing is, well, I haven't been out lately, but prior to COVID, when I did visit restaurants, I would see families come in, and the dad would have his phone.
Everybody had something, right?
Everybody had something. The little one was there with the iPad. And I thought, how sad. We still need to communicate. Okay. And when you talked about, when you were sharing about the bike, and, when I said how sometimes we live through our children, but, something else that we need to do is not only to communicate, but really observe and pay attention. And if they seem to express or show an interest in something, then I think we as parents need to try to further develop it and cultivate it. So
at least pay attention, right?
Yeah, pay attention.
Ask them questions. Let them be an expression. Don't tell them what to or what not to. Right. You can learn so much from these kids, they're your greatest parent, teachers, shall we say. And it's interesting what you said, the distancing that was happening with technology.
Yes.
When all of a sudden here we are, separated, gotta stay home, gotta stay home, right? And people are like freaking out, that, I'm separated from everybody. Well, wait a minute. You've been being separated by choice, your choice, by doing like what you just said. No
Right.
communication when you were with someone, and whether it's friends or family, you saw so much of that. Now all of a
Yes.
sudden people are beginning to realize, what's going on. The human element needs that interaction. They really do. They need that open lines of communication. And when we look at these generational gaps and the things that take place, all right, and okay, I'm a baby boomer, right? I hit that 70 mark, okay? There you go. So we are in this generation. And we go all the way down here. I got great grandkids. The youngest one is 3. And when you see everything in between, this is the learning curve. And you really begin to understand what does it mean to be in those wisdom years. And when you look at civilizations throughout history, it was the generation that we are in that were the ones that taught the skill set. Because the ones in the middle were doing what? Making sure food was on the table, a roof was over the head, the boogeyman wasn't coming to get you, all those crazy things, right? They're busy just doing, creating that stability of a home life, so to speak. So it was up to the grandparents in that arena to take care of the little ones. And if you look what's been transpiring over the last couple decades, there are more grandparents and great-grandparents that are raising these children.
That's definitely true.
Because the parent themselves are completely out of the picture. It's not there as a support team. But we've lost these generations. We've lost a couple generations here. It's time to say, whoa, let's fill this gap. Let's don't take another generation and lose them. This is our future. This is our now. So the work that you're doing, Sheila, is just amazing work. Because it's not only teaching skill sets to the young at heart, but it's also teaching it to the parents at heart and learning how to come. And you mentioned another word, unconditional.
Yeah, unconditional.
What is unconditional? I think a lot of people really don't fully understand. Unconditional means no strings attached, and that means just that. You're not doing it thinking, okay, you do that for me, later I'll get back at you and you owe me then, right? And unconditional is not about owing. Unconditional is coming from that heart. And we're looking at this heart center, and there's a lot to be said about what's going on in the movements that are happening in the world today. So understanding what coming from the heart really means, and as you say, really teaching these kids in an avenue of how they learn. Learning is not the same as it once was. It didn't work when we were kids. What makes you think it's going to work now in this technology world, right? And for me, it's like, hey, I've been jumping around the virtual reality world. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be working in virtual reality, I'd say, I don't even know what that is. Are you crazy? What are you smoking, right? And here I am. And we're working with special needs kids. We're focusing on them because right now they are really getting lost in the system because of, the whole educational system is upside down, topsy-turvy, inside out. If anything go wrong in that system right now, it's definitely showing and rearing its head. So what you're doing and what I'm doing in these avenues is time to come together. Zooms are great, but there's a lot of static. And this is why we've chosen the virtual reality world, because we can engage them. Because there's a human element there. You have this little avatar that looks like a little kid, right? Looks at whatever age that you are, right? Is there. And then there's another one right beside it. You can talk to each other inside the platform. You don't need these big Oculus glasses or anything, right? But you're there. Everyone is sitting in this classroom, which is something they're familiar with. Or they're sitting in an auditorium and say, you know what, let's go outside today and sit on the lawn. It's a beautiful day. So everybody goes out and they sit on the lawn, and the teacher's out there. And the learning now is different and it's engaging because each one of these little avatar children are sitting beside each other and what? Connected.
That sounds
Connected.
really interesting. Very interesting. And
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because you have a lot more experience than I have, is with what I'm doing, one of the challenges that I'm facing is trying to connect more with these young parents and some grandparents because not only that, in the book that I told you that is sitting in the publisher's office
Right?
that I recently published or hope to have published, I devoted a chapter to parents of special needs children. I and
Whoa,
even
I just got chills all over my body on that one.
let's design that. When you think about it, those parents, and I have experience working with special needs parents as a principal,
Uh-huh.
and my heart goes out to them because everybody loves their child. I mean, they are like, and I always told the teachers, they're jewels. They are jewels to every parent. And special needs parents often have to face the fact that their children are different early on. Some, quote, regular ed parents don't face that until maybe their child or children start experiencing difficulty. But when you have a special needs child and they need other type resources, you learn early on and you know early on that they are going to need more. They're going to need more resources. They're going to need more of your time. They're going to need more of your involvement. So, and I just devote some questions that maybe they might want to ask to prepare
Mm-hmm.
them before an IEP, some questions to ask after an IEP. And I think sometimes when we are not, like, say, we're parents of, quote, regular children, we don't have a feel for what a parent who has a special needs child goes through. My grandson is autistic. And so I have been able to see firsthand some of the struggles that my stepdaughter has had with trying to get services and
Right.
resources. And basically, what they want is what every parent wants. They want their child to be loved, they want to be recognized, and they want them to be treated like everyone else. They
You
want
know,
them equal opportunities and equal access.
yeah, and that is so factual. I've had a couple women on here who were mothers of, autistic children, whatever. And you know what? When you start to separate that and we call them special needs, every child is special. And
They
every
are.
child needs a need, right? And we need to get that separation out of the way because everyone should be treated equally. Let that child be that child. Let that child learn these experiences. And this is one of the things that I really learned from interviewing these women of autistic kids. What do you do differently? And one of the key elements that they both said was, I let my kid be a kid. And again, asking the questions, the stigma, right? Did the friends that you had, all of a sudden you have this situation that all of a sudden it's like you're contaminated. You might be contagious, so I need to back away. How many friends did you lose? How many people that were, say, best friends that you used to go out, go dancing, go drinking, go to the movies with, all these things, right? All of a sudden, they're not there. She goes, and it was like, yeah, it happens. Because we don't understand that this child is no different than your child. There are no normal childs and no unnormal childs. Every child is a child that needs the skills. They have a different way of learning. And when we as adults can get that through this thick skull, that they learn different. We all learn different.
You're right. We do.
So
We do.
let's throw out this crazy ass, system of education and start over fresh and say, let the children teach us what they want to learn. Listen and watch how they are learning. And with the virtual reality, what we have found with the amount of engagement that takes place in how they learn in this technology world, and how they experience and how they begin to engage is mind-boggling. I mean, it will blow you out of the water, because we are meeting the kids where they are. And it's like, wow, it's like this whole new world. And as you said, your book here that says every spot in your house can be a learning curve. We're working with a gal who actually has written a lot of books, and she's got the workbooks to go with it, and we're turning that into worlds, where parents are going to be able to bring their children. It doesn't matter who they are. If they're a kid, they can go in there. It doesn't matter if they're 2 years old or if they're 30 years old. Wherever they are, anyone can come in here. A parent can come in and play around and do the same thing, right? Because you know what? We all learn. We all learn things that are skills that sometimes we don't have, or we just learn a different way that something can be done. It's like, oh my God, I've been doing it like this for how many years? Holy crap, I wish I had known that 20 years ago. It's a heck of a lot easier doing it this way than that way, right? So we have all of these things. We're always learning, and we don't always learn the same way. And everyone has a different pace and a different way. And so to be able to do that and bring this exposure and open this up is amazing. So I am definitely going to get you connected with these women as well, to have your books become a part of this whole conglomeration of what we're building here for the children and for the parents. So let's learn and teach in a capacity where everyone wins, and remove the stigma that you have a special needs kid and my kid's normal. What the hell is normal? We are definitely learning right now, today, in this 2020 adventure, that there really is no normal.
You're right.
Right? There is no normal. The normal is what you make it and what you perceive it. Now let's really get down to business, and let's connect like we've never connected before. Right?
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
A new plate. We can't change what happened there. But what happened there doesn't have to look like it out there. And if we don't change it right here in the now, that future is going to be a replication of our past. And who's in charge of doing that? Everyone walking the planet. It's about unity. It's about coming together. It's about connectedness. We're all one. We all come from the same source, whatever you want to call it. We all come from the same source, and we always point up, which is what? That's where the high energy is. That's the so-called positive charge, okay? So we all come from the same substance. We're all connected.
Yes.
We all impact each other. It's just that where are you all in the bloodline, you impact, closer, the closer you are at that bloodline, at that genealogy. But we all, so Sheila, you and I only met about 50 minutes ago.
Wow.
Now it's like we've known each other for a really long time.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is.
So we're not so different from each other in what we are looking to make the world a better world by starting where? With the self. Making you that best you that you can be. And what you're doing here with the children, that's where it starts. So we all learn skill sets to begin creating a new world, because the old world is gone.
Yes.
And it all starts with creating in your own household, in your own physical being, in your own mind, and then working with those that are under your roof, and then spreading out. It's like a ripple effect,
Yes, it is.
right? So, wow. Okay, Sheila. Now, the question of the day. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's the one major point that you want to leave the audience with today?
I want to leave the audience with the point that as adults, whether they're parents, grandparents, foster parent, or they operate in a daycare, child care center, that they are powerful and that they have within them the ability to impact many, but it has to start with them. So the better that they know who they are and whose they are, then they'll be able to impact those who are close around them. I want to see more connection, more communication, people being authentic and realistic. And I guess the other thing that I want to say is take the courage and the time to reflect and really look at, as you have mentioned, yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And be willing to make that change if a change is needed. And to whatever you discover, that real you, like it, love it, be honest to it, and be confident that that is who you are and who you are supposed to be, and be willing to share it with others.
Whoa.
And
Whew. That was a mouthful.
yes.
That was powerful. So after you guys get done listening to this, rewind that and listen again. That was a powerful message right there, right? You know, in a nutshell, it's all about being that best you that you can be, and accept yourself for who you are. And the who you aren't, let it go and really become true to yourself. Because when you come true to yourself, you become true to others, right? Honor yourself and others will honor you, right? So, how can people get a hold of you? How can they get your books?
Well, my books are available at Amazon.com. Also, I am on I'm connected with exploringexpression.com, Brandy Shampoo.
Oh, yeah, I know Brandy very well.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm one of her authors. Also, I have a website, www.SheilaECares.com. And I also have an email, SheilaSapp15@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, Sheila Sapp. They can message me, Sheila Sapp, through Facebook. And that's what I have so far. I'm still learning, still trying to hook up with social media, but I'll get there.
Oh, you're already there. You're already there. Don't worry about getting there. You're already there. And you know what? You mentioned something earlier in the show that you want to become that expression of, right? So think about this. You've got your books. You know where you're going on the mission that you have. Mm-hmm. You've touched the waters of the social media. Now it's time to get into the virtual reality, and it's time for you to get your own show. Go out there, teach your message. Teach your message so everyone can learn. So it doesn't matter what age they are.
Okay.
Get the word out. And that's what a show will do. Right? So,
right.
It's time to say, go out there and be that best you that you can be, because Sheila and I are going to be the best we that we can be. And we will see all of you on the next show. Thanks for being here, Sheila. Bye-bye.
Bye.